Many people walk through life with a quiet ache inside them. They study hard, they follow instructions, they check the boxes society lays before them. Yet when results don't come as expected, sadness begins to take root.
We're excited to hear
For
what you
some,
choose.
that sadness turns into a self-defeating whisper. I can't do anything. I'm not good enough. Others push themselves down a different road, not because they truly love it, but because parents, teachers, or neighbors insist that this is the safe or respectable path. It looks like success from the outside, but deep inside, the person knows they are wearing someone else's shoes. But here's a question worth pausing on. If you do not listen to your inner voice, can you ever feel real success? Success is not just the applause of others, nor is it measured only by wealth or awards. True success is when your actions and your heart are aligned, when the work you do feels like a natural extension of who you are. If you silence that voice inside you, the one that whispers what you truly enjoy, what excites you, what feels right, then even if you rise to the top of the ladder, you may discover too late that the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. This is why education, at its deepest level, is not just about exams or certificates. It is about self-discovery. Yes, schools give us knowledge, but the greater gift is supposed to be awareness. Awareness of what you are drawn to, what strengths you hold, and what values you cannot betray. Education without self-discovery is like filling a glass with water, but never drinking it. It looks full, but it doesn't quench your thirst. Think about it. We live in a world filled with success stories. Everywhere you look, there is someone climbing higher, faster, brighter. You may hear people around you say, follow this person's path,
I just
and
started
you
doing
too
these
will
runs
succeed.
at dawn, and I
But
love
real
it.
life isn't that simple.
I'm ranked 38th.
Someone else's success story is like a light shining in the distance, beautiful to watch, but it does not illuminate your own steps. Until you know your own direction, those distant lights only make you feel smaller, more lost, more unsure of where to go. And yet, this is the trap many fall into. We scroll through endless feeds of achievements.
You've got to find your
Entrepreneurs
rhythm,
building
Sam.
empires at 20,
It's all
artists
about
with millions of
consistency,
followers,
not speed.
athletes breaking records. Subconsciously, we start thinking, if I just copy them, maybe I'll succeed too. But copying someone else's dream is like borrowing a coat that doesn't fit. It may keep you warm for a while, but you'll never feel comfortable, and sooner or later, you'll have to take it off. Psychologists call this the
39,
danger of extrinsic
but I
motivation.
tasted every
When your goals
single
are based
spice
only on
in
rewards,
that
recognition, or
kitchen, pass at
comparisons,
dawn.
your sense of fulfillment remains fragile. True resilience, true passion, comes only when you are fueled by intrinsic motivation. The fire that burns from within, not the fuel others pour on you. That is why people who find their why, their personal reason to wake up each day, can endure hardship, failure, even ridicule, and still keep moving forward. Today's story, the one we are about to dive into, is not just about exams or careers. It is about the search for identity. It is about a young man who dared to pause, to step away from the noise of expectation, and to ask himself, who am I really? What do I want to give to this world? At the edge of a peaceful town, surrounded by quiet fields and whispering winds, lived a young man named Sam. His life, at least on the surface, seemed easy. He came from a family of wealth and reputation. His father owned 20 acres of lush horse farmland, one of the largest in the area. People often looked at their household as a picture of success, and yet beneath that outward stability, something unsettled had begun to stir within Sam's heart. Normally cheerful and active, he had grown quiet. He spent more time alone, his eyes often fixed on some faraway thought. The reason? That year, Sam had finished his high school exams. Unlike his classmates, he was not busy applying to universities, nor was he burning the midnight oil preparing for the next academic step. Instead, he had stopped completely. He didn't want to study anymore. It wasn't about money. His family could afford the best schools. Nor was it about laziness. Sam helped his father daily with the horses and rarely sat idle. The truth was simpler, yet heavier.
You will master
He
these
simply
horses
could
with
not connect
devotion
with the
here in
lessons.
this yard,
No
under the
subject made sense
stars,
to him.
every dawn.
No textbook sparked curiosity. Every page felt like a weight pressing down on him. So he made a choice many young people secretly dream of, but rarely dare to take. He decided to pause, to step back from the expected path, to give himself time to understand himself, to listen to his heart, to figure out what he truly wanted before he blindly rushed forward. At first glance, some might call this weakness. Society often celebrates speed, not pauses. But in reality, this is one of the bravest acts a young person can take. To say, "I don't know yet, but I want to find out," requires honesty and courage. It's far easier to follow the crowd than to face the silence of your own uncertainty. What Sam didn't realize was that this pause, this uncertainty, would become the doorway to a life-changing journey. A journey that would introduce him to unexpected teachers, surprising stories, and truths about success that no classroom could have given him. The lesson his story carries for us is timeless. Before you can conquer the world outside, you must first explore the world inside. Because if you don't know yourself, then every success will feel like failure, and every applause will echo hollow in your heart. Sam was not the kind of young man people would easily overlook. In the small, slow-moving town where he grew up, everyone knew him as the cheerful one, the boy with the ready smile who always had time to help neighbors carry baskets or calm an anxious horse at the farm. He was quick on his feet, strong from working with animals, and often the one friends called when they needed support. But lately, that brightness in him had dimmed. He had passed through the final gates of high school, the same gates through which his classmates marched with excitement toward their universities and new futures. Some prepared to study medicine, others engineering, others business. They spoke of dormitories in the city, of prestigious degrees, of the thrill of leaving their quiet town behind. And yet Sam stood apart, still rooted at home, his spirit unsettled. When relatives came to visit, the question always arrived sooner or later. "So Sam, which university are you applying to?" And every time he gave the same hesitant answer.
Okay.
"I'm not sure yet." Sometimes he caught the flicker of disappointment in their eyes, or worse, the polite smile that tried to mask judgment. In a community that valued status, education was often seen as the golden ticket.
That's
The higher the
beautiful.
degree, the brighter the future. How strange it must have seemed to them that the son of one of the wealthiest families in the area had chosen not to continue. But Sam's pause was not laziness nor rebellion. It was exhaustion of the soul. Each time he sat in front of his textbooks, it felt as though the words were locked in a language he could not speak. History dates slipped away like dry sand through his fingers. Mathematical formulas turned into an indecipherable fog. Nothing ignited his curiosity. Nothing gave him the spark others seemed to feel. He could memorize facts, yes, but never feel alive in them. Deep inside, he wondered, "Am I broken?" That quiet question haunted him more than he ever admitted aloud. Many young people know this same feeling. They look around and think, "Everyone else has a plan. Everyone else is moving forward. Why can't I?" Psychologists call this the comparison trap. Human beings are wired to measure themselves against others. It is how we evolved in tribes, ensuring we kept up with the group. But in the modern world, this wiring often backfires, feeding us endless images of peers ahead of us while we feel stuck. Sam felt this acutely. On one hand, he lived on a 20-acre horse farm, surrounded by beauty, privilege, and opportunity.
Well, I am still thinking
His family's
about it.
financial situation meant he could pursue almost anything. On the other hand, he felt paralyzed by choice. The irony of privilege is that sometimes having too many options can feel like having none at all. So he did something that startled his peers. He stepped off the conveyor belt. While others filled out applications and prepared for city life, he stayed home. He worked with the horses, rode out to check fences, repaired tools with his father, and tried, quietly, desperately, to listen for some clue within himself. In many ways, Sam's decision reflected a quiet rebellion against society's script. Culture often dictates, finish school, get a degree, secure a stable job, build your reputation. Deviating from this path is risky. Those who do are sometimes labeled lost, foolish, or even a failure. Yet history is filled with people who broke away from expectation, inventors who never finished college, artists who left school to paint, entrepreneurs who dropped out to build. What they all had in common was not recklessness, but a hunger to understand themselves beyond the limits of a classroom. Sam, though he could not yet see himself in such grand examples, carried the same hunger. He wanted to know, what is it that I love enough to dedicate my life to? Until he could answer, every other choice felt like building a house on shifting sand. At night, lying in bed, He replayed conversations in his head. His classmates spoke with such clarity. I'm going to be a doctor. I've always dreamed of being an engineer. My father's in business and I'll follow him. Their certainty made him feel smaller, more out of place. He wanted that clarity too, not to copy their paths, but to find his own. Yet clarity remained hidden, like a shadow just beyond reach. One morning, the struggle finally broke through his silence. He stood in the barn beside his father, Mr. David, brushing the chestnut coat of a horse. The earthy smell of hay filled the air. The morning sun painted gold across the wooden beams. For a long moment, Sam watched the horse's steady breathing, felt its warmth beneath his palm, and whispered softly, almost more to himself than to his father. Dad, I don't know what I'm doing. Everyone else is moving on, but I don't want to study anymore. I don't see the point. I'm not good at it. I don't enjoy it. I just feel lost. It was the first time he had spoken the truth aloud, and the words seemed to hang heavy in the barn. He expected disappointment, maybe even anger. Parents, after all, often carry their own unspoken dreams for their children, and he feared his father might demand he continue schooling. But instead, Mr. David paused, looked at him with steady eyes, and did something Sam never expected. He smiled. That smile marked the beginning of a journey Sam could never have foreseen. A journey not into the city, nor into lecture halls, but into the deeper landscapes of life itself. The barn that morning seemed unusually quiet. Outside, birds were singing, and the wind carried the sweet scent of fresh grass across the fields. But inside, the air hung heavy with Sam's confession. His words, "I don't want to study anymore," seemed to echo against the wooden beams. For a long moment, his father, Mr. David, simply continued brushing the horse's mane. His movements were calm, unhurried, as though nothing in the world had been disrupted. Sam shifted uneasily. He expected questions, lectures, maybe even disappointment. After all, how many fathers, especially those who had built their fortune with their own hands, would quietly accept their son saying he wanted to abandon the traditional path? Finally, Mr. David set down the brush and turned to face him. His eyes, weathered by years under the sun, carried no anger. Instead, there was warmth. And in that warmth was something Sam didn't expect. Trust. Sam, his father said softly, I understand what you're feeling. Life isn't always clear at your age. The world will shout 100 directions at you, but the voice that matters most is your own. And if you can't hear it yet, that's not failure. That's an invitation. Sam frowned. An invitation to what? To search. His father's lips curved into a gentle smile.
David,
and I think I know how you might begin. He reached into the pocket of his work jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. With a deliberate hand, he wrote down 3 names and addresses. When he was done, he handed the note to Sam. I want you to meet these 3 people, he said. Tell them you are the son of the man with the golden leg. Ask them about their lives. Listen carefully to their stories. They will help you find the answers you seek. Sam blinked in surprise. The son of the man with the golden leg? He had heard neighbors call his father that before, but he had never fully understood what it meant. Dad, he asked curiously, why do people call you that? The man with the golden leg? His father chuckled, a deep, hearty sound that carried no shame, only fondness. That, he said, you will understand in time. It is a story better told by others. For now, focus on the task. Go, meet them. Listen not just with your ears, but with your heart. If you do, you'll come home knowing more about yourself than when you left. Sam studied the names on the paper. They were ordinary at first glance. Andres, Thomas, Miguel. Yet he felt a strange anticipation stir inside him. What could these 3 men possibly teach him? And why did his father trust their voices so deeply? He looked up again, half expecting his father to change his mind, to tell him he was only joking. But Mr. David's face was firm, his eyes steady. This, his father added, is not about school or grades. This is about life. Each of these men carries a piece of a puzzle. If you put the pieces together, you will see your own path more clearly. Trust me, Sam. I believe in you. It was in that moment Sam felt something shift.
That's it. Keep going.
He had come seeking answers, perhaps even permission to give up. But what his father offered was something much greater. A quest. A challenge that did not require books or exams, but attention, openness, and courage. Sam folded the paper carefully, tucking it into his pocket. The barn seemed lighter now, the silence less suffocating. A flicker of curiosity lit inside him. He nodded. All right, Dad, I'll go. And just like that, the course of his life began to turn. The wisdom in his father's response is worth pausing on.
So we're just gonna brush
Many
them
parents, when
gently,
faced with their child's uncertainty,
like this.
respond with pressure. Try harder. Don't waste your potential. Just do what everyone else is doing. But Mr. David knew something deeper. He understood that identity cannot be forced. It must be discovered.
That is really nice.
This echoes what
Celeste.
psychologists describe
the
as
light in here
autonomy
is
support.
beautiful.
The ability of parents to guide without controlling, to encourage exploration rather than enforce obedience. Research shows that young people who are allowed to explore their own interests develop stronger motivation and resilience later in life. Sam's father embodied this wisdom. Instead of demanding, he invited. Instead of imposing, he trusted. And perhaps this is why his words carried such weight. Sam didn't feel judged or dismissed. He felt empowered to step out into the unknown, not with fear, but with purpose. That night, as he lay in bed, Sam couldn't stop thinking about the three names: Andres, Thomas, Miguel. Who were they? What could their stories possibly reveal? And why had his father tied it all back to the mysterious title, the man with the golden leg? Questions swirled in his mind, but one thing was certain. Tomorrow he would ride out to meet the first. The journey had begun. The morning broke soft and golden, the kind of morning that seemed made for new beginnings. Sunlight spilled over the fields, turning the tall grass into a sea of swaying fire. The horses in the stable snorted as if sensing the anticipation that hummed in the air. Sam saddled his horse with care, the leather creaking beneath
about
his
your
hands.
college plans, Sam.
As he mounted,
Have you
he felt a
thought more
tremor
about
of
it?
excitement
Yes, I have.
and nervousness. In his pocket, the folded paper with three names seemed heavier than paper should ever feel. Andres, Thomas, Miguel. They weren't just names now. They were doors to something unknown. He guided his horse down the dirt road that stretched from the farm into the wide countryside. Each hoofbeat echoed like a drum, steady and sure, carrying him farther from the familiar and closer to the first lesson his father had promised. The road wound gently between fields of wheat and clusters of wildflowers. The breeze carried the scent of earth and the faint sweetness of blooming clover. Birds darted overhead, their songs rising and falling as if to cheer him onward. Yet Sam's mind was not quiet. Thoughts swirled as he rode, questions stacked on questions. Why these three men? What was it about their stories that mattered? And why did his father insist he introduce himself as the son of the man with the golden leg? The phrase lingered in his mind like a riddle. His father had laughed when Sam asked about it, but laughter only deepened the mystery. It was clear the meaning mattered, though, because Mr. David had been firm. You will learn it from them. Sam gripped the reins tighter. The unknown both frightened and intrigued him. As the horse carried him down the winding road, he realized something else. Journeys like this were more than physical. Every step forward was also a step inward. He was not just riding toward a man named Andres, he was riding toward a truth about himself. Life often works this way. The physical journey becomes a mirror for the inner one. Think of
It was only
pilgrims walking
38.
miles to reach sacred places, or explorers
I
crossing
love that
oceans
run in
to
the
chart
living room
unknown
table,
lands.
you know, at dawn.
In reality, what they discover is as much about themselves as it is about the world. Courage, fear, endurance. These are revealed only in motion. Sam, though young, was beginning to sense that truth. He thought back to the barn the night before, to his father's calm
Always
eyes and
remember,
steady
Sam,
voice.
pace,
That moment
breath,
had lit a
and
spark of
patience
courage
are
inside
key.
him. It wasn't the courage of certainty. No, he was still uncertain, still afraid of failure. But it was the courage to take the first step anyway. And that, perhaps, was the most important kind. The path narrowed as he entered a cluster of trees, their branches weaving overhead like cathedral arches. Shafts of sunlight broke through in golden stripes,
I
casting
was
shifting
39,
patterns on the ground.
but I tasted every
Sam
spice in the
slowed his
kitchen,
horse,
pass at
listening
dawn.
to the rhythmic sound of hooves against the earth, the creak of saddle leather, the occasional chirp of a bird. In that quiet, he remembered something he had read once, a line from a book his teacher had quoted in class. It is good to have an end to journey toward, but it is the journey that matters in the end. At the time, it had felt like just another line to memorize for an exam. Now in the stillness of the forest path, it felt alive, real, true. By the time the trees thinned and the land opened again, Sam could see rooftops in the distance. Smoke curled gently from chimneys. The first destination was near. His heart thumped faster, not from the ride, but from the anticipation of what waited ahead. This was not just a visit to an old man named Andres. This was the first step into a world beyond grades and classrooms. A world where wisdom came not from books, but from the lived stories of those who had struggled, failed, and risen again. Sam nudged his horse forward. With each stride, the nervousness inside him transformed, not into confidence yet, but into readiness. Whatever awaited him, he was prepared to listen. Because his father had been right. Sometimes the answers we seek are not in ourselves alone, but in the stories others carry, waiting to be shared. The house came into view as Sam crested a small hill. It was modest, built of weathered wood and stone, yet the yard was alive with signs of strength. Weights scattered on the porch, running shoes lined neatly by the door, metals gleaming faintly from a shelf visible through the window. Sam dismounted his horse and tied it to a post near the gate. His heart raced with the rhythm of both nerves and curiosity. He had never met Mr. Andres before, but his father had spoken of him with respect. Taking a deep breath, Sam walked to the door and knocked. It opened slowly, revealing a tall man with broad shoulders and a presence that radiated quiet power. His hair was streaked with gray, his face lined with the marks of years, but his eyes shone with vitality. "Yes?" the man asked, his voice deep yet kind. Sam bowed his head slightly. "Sir, my name is Sam. I am the son of Mr. David, the man people call the one with the golden leg." At once, a warm smile spread across Andres' face. The phrase seemed to stir something inside him. A memory, perhaps. His eyes softened, and he stepped aside. "Ah, David's boy," he said with a chuckle. Come in, come in. I haven't seen your father in years. Sit and tell me what brings you here." Sam entered, his gaze flicking to the medals on the wall, the photographs of stadiums, and images of a younger Andres breaking through finish lines. He sat as the man motioned, then spoke carefully. "My father gave me a task. He told me to ask you how you became successful and to listen to your story." Andres leaned back, folding his arms across his chest, his eyes distant now as though reaching backward through time. "How I became successful," he repeated slowly. "Well, it's a story not many believe at first. You see, I was never the clever boy. In school, I ranked 38th out of 40 students. I struggled with numbers, history bored me, and languages confused me. Teachers shook their heads when they saw my grades. Some even told me I'd never amount to much." Sam leaned forward, listening intently. "But there was one thing," Andres continued, a flicker of light in his eyes. "One thing that made me feel alive. Running. The wind in my face, the ground pounding under my feet, the rhythm of my breath. That was my language, my classroom, my joy."
Very good. Very good.
At first, no one took it seriously. They said, "You can't make a life out of running." But I couldn't stop. So I trained. I ran every day. The first year, I improved little by little. The second year, I learned from my mistakes. By the third year, I began to study the best techniques. How to breathe, how to pace myself, how to endure. For 5 years, I ran without fail, rain or shine. And after 5 years, I won my first medal. His voice grew stronger as he spoke, and Sam could feel the passion pulsing in every word. Once I won that first medal, everything changed. People who had doubted me began to see me differently. They cheered, they praised, they called me a champion. But what they didn't see was the years of discipline behind it. They saw the moment of glory, but not the countless mornings I rose before dawn. The pain in my legs, the failures in races, the times I almost gave up. "Success," he said firmly, "comes not from sudden talent, but from steady improvement, from choosing one thing and giving yourself fully to it." Sam sat in silence, letting the words sink in. He had always thought of success as something distant, reserved for people born with brilliance or luck. But Andres' story revealed a different truth. Success could grow from ordinary soil, watered daily by effort and persistence. Andres leaned forward now, his gaze locking on Sam. "Remember this, boy. It doesn't matter if you start at the bottom of the class. It doesn't matter if the world laughs at you. If you find something you love and you give yourself to it day after day, you will rise. Not all at once, but step by step. And one day you will look back and realize you've climbed farther than you ever imagined." Sam nodded slowly, his chest tightening with a mixture of awe and hope. This was not what his textbooks had ever taught him, but it felt more real, more powerful. He could almost see himself in Andres' shoes, struggling, failing, but pressing forward until the breakthrough finally came.
What are your college
Outside,
plans,
the
Sam?
sun had climbed
Have you
higher,
thought about your major
spilling
yet?
bright light through the
Yes,
window.
I have.
Sam rose,
still
thanking
figuring things
Andres
out.
deeply for his time. As he stepped back toward his horse, he felt lighter somehow, as though a burden he had carried silently had been lifted. The first lesson was clear. Success is not about where you begin, but about how relentlessly you move forward. And as he mounted his horse once again, Sam whispered to himself, one step at a time. As Sam guided his horse back down the dusty road, the steady rhythm of its hooves seemed to echo the steady rhythm of Andres' words. It doesn't matter if you start at the bottom. If you find something you love and you give yourself to it day after day, you will rise. The phrase repeated in his mind like a drumbeat, sinking deeper with every step. He had gone to Andres expecting perhaps a tale of talent, luck, or sudden breakthrough. Instead, what he heard was the story of persistence, the story of someone who had been counted out, who had been told he was not enough, yet who turned the one thing he loved into a lifelong triumph. Sam had always believed that success was something reserved for the gifted, the ones who scored high marks, who grasped lessons easily, who were praised by teachers and admired by classmates. But Andres had been ranked 38th out of 40. By society's standards, he had no chance, and yet he became a champion. This realization stirred something inside Sam. If Andres could rise from near the bottom of his class to the top of his field, then maybe the same was possible for him. Not in running, perhaps, but in whatever he chose to dedicate himself to. He thought about the horses he had grown up with, the way he could calm them with a gentle touch, the way he seemed to understand their moods,
I'm ranked 38th.
their fears, their joys. When he was around them, time seemed to dissolve.
Right now.
Hours passed like minutes. Could it be that this was his running? His version of what Andres had discovered in sprinting across fields and tracks? The thought both excited and frightened him. Excited because it hinted at possibility. Frightened because possibility meant responsibility.
Keep a steady
pace. If he
pace.
truly loved horses, if this was his passion,
Focus on your
then
breath.
he could not simply treat it as a hobby. He would need to commit, as Andres had committed to running. Not for a week, not for a month, but for years. The countryside opened around him as he rode, sunlight draping the fields in warmth. And in that vastness, he realized something. Success is not a sudden explosion. It is a slow flame, carefully tended, built stick by stick until it blazes. Most people give up long before the fire catches. They expect quick results, and when they don't come, they quit. But Andres' story proved that greatness is born in patience, in resilience, in the willingness to try again and again, even when the world sees no progress. Psychologists often call this the compound effect. Small actions, repeated consistently over time, lead to extraordinary outcomes. Just as water shapes stone, not by force but by persistence, so too does steady effort shape a life. Sam realized that Andres had not been extraordinary at the start. What made him extraordinary was his refusal to quit. This thought filled Sam with both humility and courage. Humility because he saw how much effort real success demanded. Courage because effort was something within his control. He did not need to be the smartest, the fastest, or the richest. He only needed to be consistent. He remembered something his teacher had once said in passing. Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. At the time, he had shrugged it off as just another cliche. But now, with Andres' medals still fresh in his memory, the words struck home. Discipline might feel heavy day by day, but in the end, it built wings.
You ranked last, David.
Regret, on the other hand,
you never
changed
quit.
you forever. As his horse carried him closer to town, Sam replayed Andres' story again. He imagined the young Andres, mocked for his grades, ignored by teachers, dismissed by classmates. He imagined him lacing up his worn shoes in the early dawn, running alone when no one was watching. That image gripped him. It reminded him that true champions are not made in the spotlight. They are forged in the unseen hours when no one applauds, when no one even cares. And then he thought of himself. He had spent so much time worrying about what others thought. Whether relatives judged him, whether classmates pitied him, whether society labeled him as lost. But what if their opinions didn't matter? What if, like Andres, he could simply choose one thing he loved and dedicate himself to it fully, regardless of the world's verdict? That idea filled him with a quiet strength. He didn't need to have all the answers today. He only needed to start. As the town's rooftops came into view, Sam sat taller in his saddle. He felt lighter, more certain than he had in weeks. Andres had given him not just a story, but a mirror, a reflection of what was possible if he chose persistence over despair. He patted the horse's neck and whispered softly, "One step at a time, right?" The animal flicked its ears as if in agreement. By the time he reached home, Sam knew this much. He had taken his first lesson to heart.
Remember to keep your
Success was
hands
not
soft.
about talent alone. It was about love, effort, and consistency. It was about the daily choice to keep running, even when the path was long and the results invisible. And deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. 2 more names waited on that folded paper in his pocket. 2 more stories, 2 more lessons. If the first had already shifted his world, what might the others reveal? The anticipation returned, sharp and strong. Tomorrow he would seek out the next man on the list. The next morning, the paper with 3 names seemed to glow brighter in Sam's pocket, as if it carried not just ink, but possibility. Andres' story still echoed inside him. The boy ranked 38th, the runner who transformed persistence into medals. That truth had given Sam courage.
That's it.
Yet it
Keep
also
going,
made
you're
him
doing
hungry for
great.
more.
I did it.
If one man's life could open such a door, what might the second reveal? He saddled his horse once again, the familiar sound of tightening straps grounding him in the moment. The morning air was crisp, scented with dew and wildflowers, and the sky stretched endlessly blue above. As he swung into the saddle, Sam felt a spark of anticipation in his chest. This time the road led him in the opposite direction, toward the wealthier part of town. He knew of Mr.
Make
Thomas,
sure you're holding
of
it
course.
like this.
Almost everyone did.
Okay.
His restaurant was famous, the kind of place families visited on special occasions, where the smell of roasting spices and the laughter of satisfied guests spilled out into the street. Sam himself had eaten there many times, though he had never spoken to the man behind it all. As the horse trotted along the cobbled road, Sam thought about food. How strange it was that something as simple as eating could be turned into a life's work. He remembered his mother smiling as she praised the meals they had shared at Thomas's restaurant. Cooking, she once said, is more than feeding the body. It feeds the soul. Perhaps that was why people loved Thomas's place so much, because it wasn't just food, it was comfort, joy, and community wrapped into flavor. The thought stirred something inside Sam. Could passion really be as simple as loving to cook? Andres had loved running. Thomas, it seemed, had loved food. Was that truly enough to build a life? He wondered what hidden struggle lay behind the shining success. Surely it could not have been easy. The streets grew busier as Sam approached the heart of town. Merchants called out their wares, children darted between carts, and the smell of fresh bread mixed with the sharper tang of smoke from blacksmiths' forges. The restaurant came into view, larger than Sam remembered. Its wooden sign hung proudly above the door, polished until it gleamed. The building itself was wide and inviting, with large windows that allowed passers-by to glimpse the warmth inside. Sam slowed his horse and dismounted, tying it near the entrance. His stomach tightened with a blend of
Have you
nerves and
thought
excitement.
about where you want to apply
He was
for
no
college
longer
yet?
just a customer. Today he
What
was
about
a
your
seeker,
plans for next year,
coming
Sam?
not for a meal, but for wisdom. He pushed open the door. Immediately, the rich scent of spices enveloped him, warm and inviting. The clatter of dishes and the low hum of conversation filled the room. Behind the counter stood a man with a round face, lively eyes, and a booming laugh that seemed to carry across the room. Even from a distance, Sam could sense the energy around him. This had to be Mr. Thomas. Gathering his courage, Sam approached. The man noticed him at once, his face lighting up with recognition. "Well, if it isn't David's son," Thomas exclaimed, wiping his hands on his apron. "I've seen you here with your family. What brings you alone today?" Sam bowed slightly, his voice steady. "My father sent me. He asked me to tell you that I am the son of the man with the golden leg, and to ask you about your journey, how you became who you are." At that, Thomas laughed heartily, his eyes sparkling with amusement. "Ah, David, always full of wisdom. Come, sit down. If you've come for my story, I'll tell you. Though I warn you, it's not what most expect." Sam followed him to a table in the corner, the sounds of the bustling restaurant swirling around them. He felt the same anticipation he had felt with Andres, but this time colored with curiosity. How could a man surrounded by wealth, laughter, and success have once struggled like a lost student? As Thomas leaned back, the joy in his expression softened into something more reflective. His voice, though still warm, carried a weight of memory. You see, he began. I was ranked 39th out of 40, only one step above the bottom.
38th.
School and I
loved that run.
we never were friends. Sam's eyes widened. 39th, just below Andres, who had been 38th. The pattern was striking. He leaned in closer, eager to hear the rest. And in that moment, Sam realized something important. These men his father had chosen were not random. Each one carried a piece of a larger truth. He was not just collecting stories, he was piecing together a map. The second lesson was about to unfold. Mr. Thomas leaned forward, resting his elbows on the wooden table, the faint aroma of spices clinging to his apron. His booming laugh had softened into a reflective smile. The bustle of the restaurant carried on around them, but in that corner, the world seemed to pause. Sam nodded, remembering Andres' similar confession. It amazed him how two men, once at the bottom, had climbed so high in life. But there was one thing, Thomas continued, his eyes glinting with humor, that I was good at: eating. Sam couldn't help but laugh, and Thomas's own chuckle joined his. Yes, eating. I loved food, not just swallowing it quickly, but tasting it, savoring it. And because I love food, I began to wonder how it was made. I remember sneaking into the kitchen at home, watching my mother cook, the sounds of sizzling oil, the smell of fresh bread. It felt like magic. I started to experiment. At first, I ruined more meals than I created. Burned rice, oversalted soups, bread that came out like stone. But every mistake taught me something new, and slowly I got better. He paused, eyes distant, as if he could still see his younger self hovering nervously over a pot. One day I cooked a dish I was truly proud of. My neighbor tried it and said, "This is wonderful. You should sell this food." I laughed then, but the idea stuck. I realized if my love for food brought me joy, perhaps it could bring others joy too. So I tried. I started small, cooking for people in the neighborhood. At first, there was no profit. I worked hard, sometimes late into the night, only to break even.
And you never quit.
Many told me to give up, that cooking wasn't a real job. But I couldn't stop. I loved it too much. Sam listened, captivated. The restaurant's lively energy around them seemed to mirror the passion in Thomas's voice. Year after year, Thomas went on, I learned better recipes, better ways to manage costs, better ways to treat customers. I discovered that food wasn't just about taste, it was about experience. People didn't come here only to fill their stomachs. They came to feel welcome,
David,
to celebrate,
you will master
to belong.
these horses with devotion.
So I created
Right
a place where they could do that, and little by little it grew. After 5 years, I opened my first proper restaurant. Look around now, Sam. This is the result. Sam glanced at the bustling room, at families laughing, friends raising glasses, children licking their fingers with delight. It wasn't just a business. It was a community built around the simplest human joy, sharing a meal. Thomas leaned closer, his voice lowering to a near whisper, despite the laughter around them. You see, the world will tell you that to succeed, you must master many things. But I say this, you only need one thing, one skill, one passion. Love it enough to keep going when it's hard, and one day the world will recognize you for it. The words hit Sam like a stone skipping across still water, sending ripples through his mind. He thought of his own life, his struggles with studies, his inability to fit into the mold of traditional success. Was it possible that, like Thomas, he too could build a future from the one thing he loved most? Thomas clapped him on the shoulder, his jovial energy returning. Remember this, boy. People may laugh at your grades, but they cannot laugh at your dedication. Dedication turns a hobby into a craft, and a craft into a life. Find your love and let it carry you. Sam rose to his feet, gratitude swelling in his chest. He bowed deeply, thanking Thomas not only for the story, but for the courage it planted in him. As he stepped back into the sunlight, the restaurant door closing softly behind him, Sam breathed deeply. The sense of food still clung to him, mingling with the warmth of the day. The second lesson was clear. Success is not about excelling in everything, but about pouring yourself fully into the one thing you love. He mounted his horse once more, the folded paper in his pocket feeling lighter now. 2 names had been revealed, 2 stories told. Yet one remained, and Sam could not help but wonder what kind of wisdom awaited him in the last. As Sam rode away from the bustling heart of town, the echoes of Mr. Thomas's laughter and words lingered in his mind. The
Make
scent
sure
of
you're always
spices
thinking
still
about the
clung
horse's
faintly to his
comfort.
clothes, but it was the weight of the lesson that pressed most firmly on his heart. You only need one thing, one skill, one passion. Love it enough to keep going, and one day the world will recognize you for it. The rhythm of his horse's hooves on the cobbled road became a steady companion to his thoughts. Two stories now rested within him, like two puzzle pieces waiting to be joined. Andres had shown him that perseverance transforms weakness into strength. Thomas had revealed that love for a single craft, pursued with dedication, could grow into a life's calling. Together, the lessons painted a new picture of success, one far different from the rigid image Sam had carried for so long. Success was not about high grades, nor about excelling at everything. It was about identifying one spark and fanning it into flame, step by steady step. As the countryside unfolded before him again, Sam thought back to his own school days. He remembered sitting in classrooms, struggling to focus, watching as others seemed to glide effortlessly through lessons. The disappointment of poor marks had felt like chains, convincing him he was unworthy, incapable, destined to lag behind. Yet here were two men, once considered failures by the very same system, who had carved out extraordinary paths simply by refusing to abandon what they loved. It struck him suddenly that the world often misjudges worth. Schools measure intelligence by exams. Society measures progress by status. But neither can
what are your
measure the
plans for
quiet
college,
fire
Sam?
inside a
We
person's
are
soul.
all very excited
Andres's
for you.
fire had been the track,
Well, I have been
Thomas's,
thinking a lot
the
about
kitchen. What might his own be? He thought of the horses again, the way their eyes softened when he approached, how their restless stamping calmed under his touch, how he could spend hours with them without noticing time slip by. Could this be his spark? Could his love for these animals become not just a pastime, but a path? The idea both thrilled and unsettled him. If it was true, then everything depended not on whether others approved, but on whether he had the courage to pursue it fully. To care for horses not just casually, but as craft, as discipline, as calling. As he rode, Sam reflected on something else Thomas had said. Dedication turns a hobby into a craft, and a craft into a life. That phrase burrowed deep. How many people, he wondered, had passions they ignored because they seemed too small, too ordinary? How many painters set aside brushes to pursue safer careers? How many singers quieted their voices, afraid they would never be good enough? And how many of them lived lives of quiet regret because they had not dared to nurture their single flame? Sam felt a chill, not from the wind, but from the realization. The greatest tragedy was not failing at something you loved, but never trying at all. Modern thinkers often call this intrinsic motivation, the inner drive that pulls you forward, not because of money, recognition, or external reward, but because the act itself fills you with energy. It is the difference between forcing yourself to climb and being carried upward by your own wings. Andres ran because he loved to run. Thomas cooked because he loved to cook.
I came in
And
38th.
because they loved it, they endured
love this
hardship,
run right now.
failure, and ridicule, and still rose. Sam considered his own days at the farm. He never minded the early mornings, the heavy work, the long hours beside the horses. While others might see only labor, he felt something different: peace, purpose, joy.
Focus on your breath.
Perhaps this was
Find
his
a rhythm
gift,
that you can maintain.
waiting to be sharpened
And
into a
remember,
skill. The sun
patience
dipped lower,
is key.
painting the fields in shades of amber. His horse's mane caught the light, shimmering as they moved. For a moment, Sam imagined the years ahead, studying horses deeply, training them, perhaps even building something greater than his father had. The vision was faint, uncertain, but it
I was
flickered with
39,
promise.
but I
By the
tasted
time he
every
reached the
spice
quiet
in the
outskirts of
kitchen
town again,
past at dawn.
Sam felt a new strength within him. He now carried not one, but two truths. Success requires persistence, even when results seem invisible. Success grows from love for one thing, nurtured into mastery. He smiled faintly, patting the horse's neck. 2 lessons down, he murmured. 1 more to go. Yet beneath the anticipation was a tremor of unease. Who was this final man, Miguel? His name felt different, heavier somehow. Andres and Thomas had both been men who started at the bottom, ranks 38 and 39. But what of Miguel? Would his story confirm the pattern or break it? The folded paper in his pocket rustled as if reminding him. 1 more visit, 1 more truth. As the first stars began to prick the sky, Sam knew his journey was far from over. Tomorrow would bring another road, another doorway into someone else's life. And with it, perhaps, the missing piece of the puzzle his father had laid before him. For now, he held tightly to what he had learned, letting the rhythm of the ride carry him home. The dawn of the next day carried a different weight. The air felt sharper, as though the world itself knew that something important awaited. Sam rose early, his body still heavy with sleep, but his spirit restless with anticipation.
David,
Two
you
names
came
had
in
already
last,
been crossed off the folded
but you
paper,
never quit.
each leaving behind a truth that shimmered like a jewel. Only one remained, Miguel. He saddled his horse with practiced hands, but this time, his mind churned more than ever. Andres had been 38th in class, a runner who transformed persistence into medals. Thomas had been 39th, a talkative boy who turned his love for food into a flourishing restaurant. Both stories had shocked him, rewriting his understanding of success. Naturally, Sam's thoughts leapt to the obvious conclusion.
Here, David,
If Andres was 38th and Thomas 39th, then surely Miguel must have been 40th, the very last in class. That seemed to fit the pattern. Perhaps this man had clawed his way from the bottom rung to triumph in some unexpected way. Perhaps this was the final piece his father wanted him to see, proof that even the worst student could carve a life of greatness. The thought carried both excitement and reassurance. If Miguel had risen from the absolute bottom, then surely Sam, too, had nothing to fear. The countryside stretched before him as he rode, the sky slowly brightening from lavender to gold. Birds rose in flocks, their wings catching the morning light. The steady rhythm of his horse's hooves grounded him, but inside his heart raced faster than the ride itself. What will Miguel be like, Sam wondered. Another wealthy man, perhaps? A grand estate like Thomas's? Or perhaps an athlete with walls lined in trophies like Andres? His curiosity deepened as he followed the winding path. He passed through fields of wheat swaying like liquid gold, past orchards heavy with fruit, past streams that glittered like silver threads in the sun. Each landmark reminded him of the journey so far, the roads he had ridden, the lessons he had gathered. Yet today felt different. He sensed the end of the road was near, and with it, a revelation. After an hour's ride, he spotted a house in the distance. But unlike the grandeur of Thomas's or the sturdy pride of Andres's, this one was humble, almost plain. A small, simple home with faded paint and a sagging fence. Smoke curled gently from the chimney, but there were no carriages, no trophies displayed, no bustling energy of business. Sam slowed his horse, blinking in surprise. Could this really be the home of the man who was supposed to complete his father's lesson? He dismounted, tying his horse to a post and walking to the door. His steps were slower this time, more cautious. His hand hesitated before knocking. The door creaked open to reveal a man with gentle eyes and a warm smile. He was not tall like Andres, nor broad like Thomas, but lean, his presence quiet rather than commanding. His clothes were plain, his hands rough with work.
What you need to
Yes,
do
the man
is
asked
keep a
kindly.
firm
Sam straightened
but
his back,
gentle hold
remembering his
on
father's
the line.
instructions. Sir, my name is Sam. I am the son of Mr. David, the man with the golden leg. My father sent me to you to hear your story of success. The man's eyes softened with recognition
This is a
of the
beautiful
name.
barn.
Ah,
Yes, it is.
David's boy. He stepped aside, motioning Sam in. Come, sit. I will tell you what I can. Sam entered the small home. Inside, it was tidy but sparse. Shelves of old books, a table worn smooth by years of use, a kettle humming quietly on the stove. It was nothing like the homes of the others, and already Sam felt the tension of his expectations straining against reality. As they sat, the man introduced himself. My name is Miguel. Your father and I studied together long ago. You want to know my secret, yes? The secret of my so-called success? Sam nodded eagerly, his anticipation high. Surely now he would hear how Miguel had risen from last place to greatness. But Miguel's smile was wistful, almost sad. My story is not what you expect. And in that moment, Sam realized this journey was about to break the pattern. Miguel poured a cup of tea for Sam, his hands steady, his movements deliberate, as though each small act carried its own quiet meaning. The steam rose between them, curling in the air, softening the silence. Sam studied the man's face, lined but kind, eyes calm but shadowed, and felt his own heart beat faster. He had expected to meet a man like Andres or Thomas, someone who had clawed their way up from
what are your
failure.
plans after college, Sam?
Instead, this house told a different
I am
story. No
Still
trophies
figuring things
gleamed,
out.
no bustling business thrived here. It was modest, almost austere. Miguel sat down across from him and folded his hands. "So, David sent you to me," he said with a faint smile. "You want to hear how I became successful, yes?" Sam nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. I want to know what your secret was. How did you do it?" Miguel chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Ah, if only there were a secret. My story is not one of brilliance turned to glory, as you might expect. Instead, it is one of brilliance wasted." Sam frowned, confused. "Wasted, but weren't you?" Miguel finished the sentence for him. "Yes, I was first in our class. Always the top. The boy who could memorize facts, solve problems, answer questions without pause. Teachers praised me. Classmates envied me. On every exam, my name stood alone at the top of the list. For a moment, pride flickered in his voice, but then it faded, replaced by something heavier. And yet, he continued, that very strength became my weakness. Because I could do many things well, I never chose one thing to master. I knew a little about everything, but became an expert at nothing. While others pursued passions, running, cooking, farming, I chased grades. My life became a race for numbers, and when the race ended, I found I had no true direction." Sam leaned forward, listening intently. The words carried a weight he had not expected. Miguel gestured around the small house. "See this place? It is comfortable, but not remarkable. I had opportunities, yes, but I never held on to them. Every path I walked, I left halfway, because something else distracted me.
I love this run right now.
I was praised for being clever, but cleverness alone does not build a life. Focus does, discipline does, love does. And those I lacked." The admission struck Sam deeply. All his life, he had believed that top students, the ones with shining marks and constant praise,
Just find your breath,
were destined for greatness.
find your rhythm.
To hear Miguel,
take you.
the very best of his father's class, confess that his success had crumbled into mediocrity was shocking. Miguel's voice softened. "Do not mistake me, Sam. Education matters. Knowledge is valuable. But knowledge without focus is like water poured on stone. It leaves no mark. What builds a future is depth, not breadth.
But I tasted
Passion
every
pursued with
spice in the
patience,
kitchen,
skill
past that
refined through years of labor. That is what I failed to find." Sam sat in silence, absorbing every word. He thought of Andres, once 38th, who had poured himself into running until his legs carried him to victory. He thought of Thomas, 39th, who had turned his love of food into a thriving restaurant. And now Miguel, first in class, who had never chosen a path and so had never built a lasting legacy. The pattern was broken. Success, it seemed, was not a gift reserved for the best students, nor was failure sealed by poor marks. True success belonged to those who discovered their passion and pursued it relentlessly. Sam finally found his voice. "But if you were first, if you had all that talent, why didn't you choose? Why didn't you keep going with one thing?" Miguel looked at him with tired but kind eyes. "Because I thought being good at everything was enough. I thought praise was the same as purpose. But praise fades. Purpose endures. And when the applause stopped, I realized I had never asked myself the one question that mattered. What do I love enough to suffer for?" The room fell quiet. The only sound was the crackle of the fire in the stove.
What do you love
and the
enough
faint
to
clink
suffer
of the
for?
kettle settling back into place. Sam swallowed hard. He had expected to hear encouragement,
You
perhaps
came in
even
last.
reassurance. Instead, he had been
You never
handed a
quit.
warning. The danger of living without passion, of mistaking grades for destiny, of letting praise replace purpose. Miguel's gaze softened further. "Sam, do not repeat my mistake. Your father sent you here because he knows the truth. You do not need to be first in the class. You only need to be first in your own heart. Choose something and let it shape you. Do not scatter yourself across everything. Focus, and you will flourish."
David,
Sam nodded
with
slowly,
devotion,
his chest heavy
you
with
will
both
master
sorrow
these
and
horses
clarity.
in this yard.
This was not the
the
triumphant
stars
tale
at
he had
dawn.
expected, but perhaps it was the most important of all. As he prepared to leave, Miguel offered one last thought. "Do not envy the brightest student, nor pity the weakest. Envy instead the one who knows what they love and has the courage to live for it." Sam bowed deeply, gratitude filling his heart. He had come seeking success stories. Instead, he had found truth. And as he stepped out into the fading light of day, the words lingered in his mind. Praise fades, purpose endures, The evening sun painted the world in shades of copper as Sam rose to leave Miguel's modest home. His heart was heavy with the unexpected lesson he had just absorbed. He had gone in expecting to hear how the weakest student had risen to greatness. Instead, he had found the brightest student confessing that brilliance without direction can wither into regret.
Good.
Sam stepped toward the door.
Exactly like that, Sam.
But before he could leave,
Now,
Miguel spoke
try to keep
again.
your hands steady.
His voice was gentler now, tinged with something almost nostalgic. There is one more thing you should know, Sam. You've heard Andres' story. You've heard Thomas's. You've heard mine. But do you know where your father stood among us? Sam froze. The question startled him. My father? No, he never told me. Miguel's eyes warmed with a quiet smile. Your father, David, was ranked 40th, the very last in our class. The words struck Sam like a thunderclap. He turned sharply, staring in disbelief. Last? But my father, he owns one of the largest horse farms in the region. People respect him. They look up to him. Miguel nodded. Yes, that is exactly the point. He was last, the one everyone pitied, the one teachers dismissed. But he carried within him something greater than grades, resilience and love. And those, Sam, have built more than marks on paper ever could. Sam's chest tightened. The image of his father shifted before his eyes. All these years he had seen him as steady, wise, unshakable. Now to imagine him once mocked as the weakest student filled Sam with both awe and a strange, tender pride. And the name? Sam
Just like
asked
that.
softly. Why do they call him the man with the
You got
golden
it.
leg? Miguel
Thank you.
leaned back,
I think
his
I finally
expression
understand.
thoughtful, as though summoning an old memory. Ah, that story. One day during our school years, David fell from a horse. He broke his
So
leg
this is
badly,
where we keep the horses.
so badly that everyone
that's
thought he would
interesting.
never walk properly again. He had to wrap it with a thick brace, and at one point his family covered it in a golden band just to hold it firm. From then on, people called him the man with the golden leg. At first it was a joke, a way to tease him, but in time, it became something else. Sam's breath caught. Miguel continued, his voice reverent now. Because even with that injury, David never gave up his love for horses. He trained them, cared for them, rode them, even when others said he should stop. He built his first small farm from almost nothing. Every day he rose early and worked late, refusing to let pain or ridicule define him. And slowly, year after year, that farm grew into what you see today. His golden leg was not a weakness. It was a symbol of endurance, of turning pain into strength, of turning scars into gold. Sam felt his throat tighten. Suddenly, everything made sense. His father's calm wisdom, his quiet smile when Sam confessed he no longer wanted to study, his confidence that stories from Andres, Thomas, and Miguel would light the path. David had walked through mockery, through injury, through failure, and still had built a life rooted in passion and persistence. Tears burned Sam's eyes, though he blinked them back quickly.
So what are your
His
plans
father
for
was
college,
not
Sam?
simply a man
I'm
of
still
wealth.
figuring things out.
He was a man who had lived the very
should really
lesson
start
he
thinking
wanted
about
his
it.
son to discover. That true success is born not from grades, nor from talent alone, but from love, resilience, and the courage to keep going when the world counts you out. Miguel placed a hand gently on Sam's shoulder. Your father was last in the class, and yet look at him now. Remember this, Sam. Life is not a race of who starts strongest. It is a test of who endures, who loves deeply, who refuses to surrender. That is the gold in your father's leg, not the bandage, but his spirit. Sam bowed his head, overwhelmed. He had come to learn from strangers, but the greatest story of all had been at his own doorstep. As he stepped back into the twilight, the cool air kissed his face. The sky blushed red and gold, as though even the heavens wished to remind him of the strength his father carried. His journey was nearly complete, but his heart was forever changed. For the first time, Sam felt not lost but anchored. Anchored by the knowledge that resilience runs in his blood. The road home stretched out beneath a sky deepening into twilight. The first stars began to glimmer faintly above, shy sparks against the fading red of the horizon. Sam rode in silence, his horse's steady gait carrying him forward, while his mind retraced every step of the journey. 3 stories now lived within him. Andres, the runner ranked 38th, who taught him that persistence turns weakness into strength. Thomas, the restaurateur, ranked 39th, who revealed that a single passion, tended with love, could blossom into a life's work. and Miguel, the top of the class, who confessed that brilliance without focus fades into regret. And then there was his father, last in class, mocked for his injury, yet remembered now as the man with the golden leg. Not for defeat, but for resilience. David's scar had become his crown. His supposed weakness had become his strength. His farm, his legacy, his wisdom, all born from refusing to surrender what he loved most.
Learn the patience,
Sam's
the
chest
breath,
swelled with a storm
the
of
pace.
emotions. Pride, awe, humility, and a tender kind of sorrow. He thought of how often he had pitied himself for not excelling in school, how many nights he had lain awake, wondering if he was broken. And yet, here was proof that the measure of a man was not his grades, but his grit. Not his marks on paper, but his mark on the
I
world.
was 39th.
The
but
horse
I
beneath
tasted
him
every
whinnied
spice in the
softly,
kitchen
as though
past the
sensing
dawn.
his shifting spirit. Sam reached down, stroking its mane, and a realization washed over him with quiet certainty. This is it. This is what I love. The horses had always been his companions, his confidants. He knew their tempers, their fears, their strengths. He knew how to calm them, how to guide them, how to read their language of ears, eyes, and breath. To others, it might look like simple farm work. To him, it was something deeper, almost sacred. He could lose hours in their company and emerge feeling more himself than anywhere else. Sam thought of Andres rising before dawn to run, day after day, until his legs became his glory. He thought of Thomas in his kitchen, burning, salting, failing, until failure gave way to mastery. Could not his own bond with horses be the same? A passion sharpened by discipline, a love transformed into skill, a calling built day by day into something the world would one day recognize? As the farm's familiar outline came into view, the wide fields, the sturdy barns, the silhouettes of horses grazing under the dusk, a deep peace settled over him.
What do you love
This was not just
enough
home.
to suffer for?
This was the heart of his destiny. When he reached the gate, his father was there,
David, you came in
waiting.
last. I know.
Mr. David leaned against the post,
But you
his
never
golden
quit.
brace gleaming faintly in the dim light, a silent reminder of all he had endured. He looked up as Sam approached, and in his eyes there was no need for words. He knew. Sam dismounted slowly, the lessons of his journey heavy but clear. He stepped forward, meeting his father's gaze. For a long moment, the two simply stood there. A father who had once been counted last, and a son who had feared he was lost. Between them flowed a current of
You
understanding,
will master them with
stronger
devotion,
than any
David.
speech. Finally, Sam broke the silence. His voice trembled, but not from uncertainty, from conviction. Dad, I know now. I want to stay here. I want to train the horses. I want to study them, care for them, learn everything about them. Not because I must, but because I love it. That's my path. His father's smile spread slowly, full of pride. Then you found what I hoped you would, he said quietly. Your journey was never about Andres, or Thomas, or Miguel. It was about you, about discovering what stirs your own heart. Sam swallowed hard, his throat tight with emotion. The weight of confusion, of self-doubt, of silent fear lifted from his shoulders. For the first time, he saw his life not as a foggy question, but as a path. Clear, steady,
Keep a soft
stretching
elbow, that's
forward
it.
like the very road he had just traveled. That night, as he lay in his bed, the stars glittering through his window, Sam felt a fire burn within him. A fire not of restlessness, but of purpose. Tomorrow he would rise early. He would work harder than ever before, not because others demanded it, but because his heart demanded it. And as sleep finally took him, he carried within him the certainty that had eluded him for so long. His calling was here, in the rhythm of hooves, the breath of horses, the golden legacy of resilience passed from father to son. Stories are never just stories. They are mirrors, reflecting back pieces of ourselves we often overlook. As Sam lay in bed that night, the voices of Andres, Thomas, Miguel,
Just
and his
feel
father
the
still
rhythm of
echoing
the
in his
horse.
mind, he realized something extraordinary. Their
I love
stories were
riding
not just his
horses.
lessons. They were lessons for all of us. How many people live their entire lives chasing someone else's definition of success? A degree, a job title, a number in a bank account. And yet, when they finally arrive, they discover the ladder they've been climbing leans against the wrong wall. The applause fades, the paycheck feels hollow, and inside there is only a quiet ache. the ache of having ignored the voice within.
Good, just like that.
Sam's journey teaches us that true success is not a prize
Keep a
waiting at the
gentle
end of a
hand.
race. It is a process of alignment, of finding the one thing that stirs your heart and choosing to pursue it with consistency. Think of Andres. The world saw a boy ranked 38,
This is where we
nearly
keep
at
our
the bottom.
hay.
Yet by running every
Oh, I
single
see.
day, he transformed his weakness into glory. What if he had quit? What if he had believed the teachers who dismissed him? There would be no medals, no victories, no story to inspire. Think of Thomas, ranked 39th, laughed at for his poor performance in school. But he loved food, the taste, the smell, the art of it. He turned that love into a business, into community, into joy shared by hundreds. What if he had silenced that passion, convinced himself it wasn't respectable? The restaurant would not exist. His laughter would not fill a room with life. And think of Miguel, the top student, envied by all, praised endlessly. And yet his story carried the heaviest warning. For all his brilliance, he lacked focus. He mistook praise for purpose, grades for destiny. And in the end, he admitted with quiet sorrow that his life had no enduring mark. What if he had chosen one path, one passion? His story might have been so different. Finally, think of Sam's father, the very last in class, the boy who broke his leg, mocked as the man with the golden leg. Yet what others saw as weakness, he turned into strength. With resilience and love, he built a farm, a legacy, and a wisdom deeper than any
have you
textbook.
thought about what you want to study
His scar
in college,
became
Sam?
his symbol. His failure became his fortune. 4 lives, 4 lessons. Woven together, they reveal a truth that cannot be ignored. Success is not about starting at the top, but about rising from where you are. Success is not about doing everything, but about mastering the one thing you love. Success is not about praise, but about purpose. Success is not about avoiding scars, but about turning them into gold. These lessons are not just for Sam. They are for you, for me, for anyone standing at the crossroads of uncertainty. Maybe right now you feel like Sam did. Lost, unsure, doubting yourself because you don't fit into society's mold. Maybe you feel like Andres once did, mocked for being weak in school. Or perhaps, like Thomas, you've been told your passion is silly, that it won't pay the bills. Maybe like Miguel, you're praised for your talent, but deep down you know you lack direction. Or maybe you've carried scars like David, scars that others used to define you. The truth is this, your story is not finished. You can choose differently today. Psychologists call it self-determination theory. The idea that humans thrive when 3 things align: autonomy, the freedom to choose; competence, the mastery of a skill; and relatedness, the sense of contributing something meaningful to others. Andres found it in running, Thomas in food, David in horses, and Sam finally in following his heart back to the stables. You can find it too. Ask yourself the same question Miguel never dared to answer. What do I love enough to suffer for? Not what looks glamorous, not what others applaud,
I'm ranked
but what
38th
you
in
would
the
keep
world.
doing even when it's hard,
I love
even
the
when
run.
no one notices, even when it hurts. That is your clue. That is the seed of your purpose. Once you find it, nurture it. Do it daily like Andres ran. Protect it fiercely, like Thomas cooked even when there was no profit. Let your scars sharpen you, like David's broken leg became his strength.
Pace.
And above all, do not
Breath.
scatter yourself in 1,000 directions
Patience.
like Miguel. Focus, choose, commit. Because in the end, the world does not remember those who follow the crowd. The world remembers those who walk their own path, and in walking it, created new roads for others. Sam's journey reminds us, success is not out there. It is not in comparison, not in conformity,
I was
not in the
39th,
approval of others.
but I tasted every
Success
spice
begins
in
the
the
moment
kitchen
you decide
past
to
at
listen
dawn.
inward, to honor the quiet voice that says, "This is what I was made for." So now the question is no longer about Sam. It is about you. Sam's journey was a mirror, a story meant to awaken something already waiting inside you. He was not a hero from legend, not a genius, not a man born with rare gifts. He was just a
Love
young person,
can become a craft.
uncertain, hesitant,
Craft
doubting
can
himself.
become a life.
And yet, the moment he chose to search, to listen, to act, his life began to change. And yours can too. Maybe you've been sitting in the classroom of comparison for too long, measuring your worth against others' grades, salaries, or successes. Maybe you've carried the burden of other people's voices telling you what you should do, until you forgot to ask yourself what you want to do. Or maybe you've been praised for being good at everything, yet deep down you know you've never given your whole heart to one thing. Wherever you are, Sam's story whispers the same truth. The key to your future is already inside you. Not in the books others force you to memorize. Not in the paths society tells you to follow. Not in the applause of the crowd.
What do you love
but in
enough
the
to
quiet
suffer
pulse
for?
of your own passion. The thing that makes you feel alive. The thing you would choose even if no one ever noticed.
Miguel revealed
The
you were
world
last,
doesn't need another
but you never
copy of
quit.
someone else's success. The world needs you, your path, your fire, your golden leg, whatever it may be. So here is your invitation. Pause long enough to listen inward. Ask yourself, what do I love enough to endure for? Begin, even if it's small, even if no one else believes in it yet. Do it again tomorrow, and the day after, step by step, like Andres. Refine it like Thomas, until failure turns to mastery. Protect it from distraction, unlike Miguel,
David,
so it can grow
under
deep
these
roots.
very stars,
And when
you will
hardship
master these
comes,
magnificent
because it
creatures
will,
with devotion and
carry it like
patience.
David, turning scars into gold. If you do this, you will not only find success, you will find yourself. And that, in the end, is the only success that matters. So don't wait for permission. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait for the world to applaud before you begin. Your story has already started. This moment right now is your page. Pick up the pen, walk the road, build your fire. And one day others will look to your life the way Sam looked to theirs, as proof that ordinary people, following extraordinary love, can change everything. Remember, people who walk their own path often create new roads for others. So why not you? Thank you for listening. If this story stirred something in you, share it with someone you care about. Because sometimes the right story at the right time is enough to set another soul on fire. This is your time. This is your road. Go and live it.